effect of A, being redundant to a core criterion in the bill, and B, possibly delaying the creation of safe consumption site and the saving of lives.
The honourable member for Victoria will have 6 minutes left in time for questions and comments when the House next takes up debate on the motion before the House. But now we're going to statements by members, déclaration de député, and the honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all. Ils ne peuvent être atteints sans.
These goals cannot be achieved without protecting life on land and life below the oceans.
S'engager à atteindre.
Canada is committed to meeting these goals, and the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative is a valued partner in that effort.
Cooperative is Canada's national wildlife health program, ensuring we meet our international obligations in conservation, agricultural trade, and public health. In February 2017, federal and provincial and territorial ministers agreed that a national approach to a wildlife health is needed. Le réseau nous fournit expertise.
The cooperative provides us with the expertise and experience in wildlife health so that Canada is ready to confront challenges such as climate change, emerging diseases, and pollution. The cooperative helps us to be better prepared and focused on preventing problems before they arise.
Sorry, we're out of time. The honourable member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend, many Canadians will join together with their families to celebrate Mother's Day, and this gives me the opportunity to celebrate my mother, Pat Martin. In 1959, she married my father, Harold, and together they have 4 children, my sisters, Linda and Anne, and my brother, Paul. And of course, I am her baby. My mom knows that if I really had a bad day, her phone will be ringing. Whether it's the stories about Noah and Maddie or an update on Brittany's hockey team, she always puts things into perspective. She is very well known for her apple pies and her date squares. My mom is just not a mom to us as our siblings, but to so many others. Cousins, friends, and people who've worked with Mom and Dad always know that they're welcome at her place. Her heart is just so big. You can go over any time for dinner. She's prepared dinner for 2, but she can feed 10. I am so proud of being Pat Martin's daughter. A cup of tea and a piece of pie does fix all at my mom's house. Thank you, Hubbard. I love you to pieces. And to all of the special moms, mothers-in-laws, grandmothers, and nanas, happy Mother's Day to you all. Thank you.
Honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today during National Nursing Week to congratulate an outstanding nurse from my riding, Aaliyah Over. Aaliyah is the Canadian Nurses Association's theme contest winner for suggesting the new hashtag campaign, #YesThisIsNursing. The campaign will run for 2 years and will highlight the broad and important role nurses play in all of our lives. Aaliyah is a registered nurse employed by York Region as a public health nurse. Congratulations, Aaliyah, and thank you for your important contributions to Canadian nursing. And thank you to all of the hardworking nurses in Newmarket, Aurora, and across Canada for helping make our country the wonderful place it is. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
A member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, this is National Health Day, and I rise to focus on the challenges that seniors face every day in my community of Victoria and across the land. All of us have heard from our senior constituents and their families about surgery wait lists, the lack of pharmacare, inadequate home care, and a shortage of nursing home beds. The specific challenge of dementia requires urgent action. It's estimated that nearly 750,000 Canadians have Alzheimer's disease or a related form of dementia. Unpaid dementia caregiving results in $11 billion of lost income each year. By 2040, the lack of care and lost productivity due to dementia will cost us taxpayers almost $300 billion a year. We've come together in this House before to commit to a national strategy for seniors' health and dementia in particular. Today, I'd ask us to redouble our efforts to make good on our shared promises to develop and implement a Canada-wide plan. Mr. Speaker, as Canada's seniors population doubles in the next 25 years, we must ensure that our seniors are able to age with dignity and enjoy the benefits they've earned in a lifetime of building this great country.
Honourable member for Brampton North, Brampton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On May 5th, Gujarati Heritage Month was celebrated at Brampton City Hall. Garbi Garbi Gujarati flag was hoisted in a symbolic fashion. Gujarati community demonstrated why they are known as global economic re-energizer. This was positively evident when I visited with CPA delegation to Canadian booming McCain Foods in Gujarat. Mr. Speaker, I am optimistic and confident that this vibrant community will be playing a major role in reshaping the stronger Canadian economy. Jai Jai Garbi Gujarat, elation filled the air with energetic chants. Enthusiasm and loyalty ignited in me to lead in Jai Canada, Jai Canada, Jai Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome to all Bramptonians, those who are here today. Thank you.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, approximately 32,000 Métis and First Nations people work in Canada's natural resources. It's the largest private sector employer of First Nations people across the country. First Nations in Lakeland and Alberta are very active in oil and gas, from upstream exploration and production to service supply and technology. But the Liberals and the left often imply all First Nations people are against it. Yet AFN Chief Perry Bellegarde says some 500 of the 630 First Nations in Canada are open to pipelines and to petroleum development. 50 First Nations actively support the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. 31 First Nations and Métis along the right-of-way, the majority, supported Northern Gateway and were equity partners, like the Buffalo Lake Métis settlement in Lakeland. First Nations across Western Canada, like Goodfish in Lakeland, want energy east. The Liberals won't admit it, but Canada produces the most environmentally and socially responsible oil and gas in the world. It provides jobs and opportunities for First Nations people and for all Canadians.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to rise today to recognize National Food Allergy Awareness Month. An anaphylactic reaction has the potential to be life-threatening and must be treated immediately. A prompt response is required to ensure a positive outcome. It is a matter of life and death. The prevalence of anaphylaxis is increasing at an alarming rate. Between 1997 and 2010, the number of people with a peanut or nut allergy has more than quadrupled. 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of having Debbie Bruce from the Canadian Anaphylaxis Initiative visit me in my constituency office to train me on how to use an EpiPen. It's as easy as blue to the sky, orange to the thigh, call 911. Thank you.
The honourable member for La Saint-Raymond-Verdun.
Today in honor of Professor David Vaver, who today will be invested as a member of the Order of Canada for his leadership as an intellectual property law and scholar and mentor. His books on IP and copyright law, Mr. Speaker, have saved the backside of many a student and not to mention many a young professor. No one has better defined the IP balance in Canada. His crafting of the term users' rights as regards to fair dealing in copyright law was unanimously adopted by the Canadian Supreme Court and by the IP community. Professor Vaver was long time associated with the Osgoode Hall Law School and is an emeritus professor at the University of Oxford. His leadership and mentorship of many students and teachers in the IP community in Canada and around the world, including me, Mr. Speaker, has founded a generation of intellectual property lawyers, policymakers, and academics who are today building the legal structures required by technological advancement. Thank you, David, for being such a great teacher, for being such an excellent scholar, and such a generous mentor.
The honourable member for Chilliwack, HoC.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative Party of Canada has always supported supply management. We supported it during each of our election campaigns and policy conventions. Most importantly, our previous Conservative government supported supply management in our trade negotiations, signing both the massive EU and TPP trade deals while protecting our farmers and our system of supply management. Conservatives have defended our farmers when the U.S. has tried to circumvent our import controls with pizza kits, milk protein concentrates, compositional cheese standards, and dye-filtered milk. When other countries have dismantled their supply managed systems, it devastated local farmers and didn't lower prices for consumers. Supply management ensures that local Canadian farmers are able to support their families without government subsidies and provide reliable, safe, and healthy dairy, poultry, and egg products to Canadians. I will always support the supply managed farm families in my riding and across Canada, and I thank them for everything they do to support our communities and our country.
The honourable member for Pontiac.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, on International Nurses' Day, I'm pleased to introduce Laura Gamble, a nurse who worked during the First World War and is from Wakefield in Pontiac.
one of 3,000 nurses who served in the Canadian Army Medical Corps, many of whom were deployed overseas. In the hospital, right in the thick of the First World War theatre, Laura had to look after countless patients, and she was awarded a medal at a special ceremony at Buckingham Palace in England for her service. Les infirmières militaires du Canada ont...
Canadian military nurses saved lives on the European front at the cost of many sacrifices. Celebrating the 150th of Confederation, the centennial of the First World War, and the centennial of women obtaining the right to vote in Canada represent an opportunity to highlight the contribution of women to the history of our country. Let us take pride in the work accomplished by these extraordinary women like Laura on this International Nurses' Day. Thank you.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, today is Manitoba Day. It's an opportunity to reflect on the richness and diversity that makes our prairie province so great. Manitoba's geography includes plains, deserts, Arctic tundra, boreal forest, and a seacoast, as well as endless lakes and rivers. Lake Winnipeg is a provincial treasure and Canada's 6th Great Lake. We are the polar bear capital world and the curling capital, too. Manitoba is the home to 63 First Nations communities and is the heart of the Métis Nation. Manitoba was the first Canadian province to grant some women the right to vote. Manitoba has a long history of welcoming people from hundreds of countries around the world. Nearly 2,000 new Canadians have joined my riding alone since I was elected in 2015. Mr. Speaker, Manitoba is also home to my family and almost 1.3 million other Canadians, and I would like to wish them all a happy Manitoba Day.
The honourable member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
Mr. Speaker, it is my privilege to acknowledge a businessman from our riding who, along with his wife Tracy and friends, join us in the Parliament Hill today. Mr. Chris Hellman is the owner of Mr. Lube and Moxie's Restaurant in Medicine Hat. However, he is so much more than just a business owner. He is a true community builder and is always the first to step up to support local charities. Chris doesn't just give money. He gives his time, his connections, his resources, and his complete self to numerous causes. Chris is involved in many boards, including Thrive, a poverty reduction initiative in our community. He plays a key role in raising tens of thousands of dollars every year for many organizations across the region. Chris is quiet in his approach to giving, not needing any praise or ever needing to be recognized. That is exactly why I believe he is so deserving of recognition today. Let us all aspire to be a little bit more like Chris, whose charitable spirit and compassion are both humbling and contagious. Well done, Chris.
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to mark a number of milestones for the Whitby Fire Department. First, the swearing in of 24 new firefighters represents the largest recruitment in the department's history. We appreciate your commitment to serving the increasing needs of our town and protecting our community for years to come. I would also like to extend my recognition to Platoon Chief Douglas Miller and Chief Training Officer Gordon Hampson on the occasion of your recent retirement. We thank you for your years of service with pride and dedication. And finally, I want to extend my sympathies for the recent passing of Platoon Chief Randy Tereski. Turk, you'll be sorely missed by your family, fellow firefighters, friends, and everyone in our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Desnathy, Missinippi Churchill River.
Recently, the province of Saskatchewan passed a bill that shifted power and responsibility from the locally elected school boards to the Provincial Ministry of Education. In fact, the northern school divisions are making significant progress in the achievement of the youngest and most vulnerable Aboriginal children. The threat of boundary changes will disrupt this progress. There are proposed changes to the democratic structures of education in the north, and the northern people who will be directly affected are not being consulted. Canada has a long history of doing things to First Nations, Métis, rural, and northern communities and not doing things with them. The TRC calls for change to be made in the education and the full participation and informed consent of Aboriginal people. This is not happening. This is disrespectful. No one has told the North why any change is necessary. I'm afraid that this will put Canada on the wrong side of history with Aboriginal people once again.
The honourable member for Peace River, Westlock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mother's Day weekend, it is Mother's Day weekend, so let us take a minute to remember the lessons that mothers teach us. Mothers teach us to treat everybody with respect, even those who oppose you. Mothers teach us to treat all human beings with human rights. Mothers teach us that when we ask a question, we should give a straight answer. Mothers teach us we should own up to our mistakes and always be honest. Mothers teach us not to embellish our accomplishments or make things up, because you never lie to your mother. Mothers teach us not to bow to peer pressure and that drugs are bad. Mothers teach us that you have to play by the rules and not make them up as you go along. Mothers teach us that the value of a hard-earned dollar and that you're not to waste money. And do you know what else is great about mothers? Mothers don't leave their children and grandchildren with massive debt that will take generations to pay off. Happy Mother's Day.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Canada is home to 1.3 million people of Ukrainian heritage, and we do have a very special relationship with Ukraine. Back on September 17, 2014, President Poroshenko from Ukraine addressed this very chamber about the strong friendship between our two countries. Amongst other things, he talked about the importance of trade. On July 16, 2016, our current Prime Minister went to Ukraine, and a Canada-Ukraine trade deal was signed. Canada has stepped up in other ways to support our special relationship with Ukraine, such as Project Unifier, an agreement which sees 200 members of our Canadian forces having a physical presence in Ukraine. More recently, Canada and Ukraine entered into a military cooperation agreement. On that note, I want to thank the Minister of Defense for coming to my constituency earlier this year, where we met with members of our Ukrainian heritage community. Thinking of Ukrainian heritage, I would encourage members to participate in the International Vyshyvanka Day on May 18. Let us celebrate our Ukrainian heritage with pride, and we can promote that day by wearing a Vyshyvanka, tweeting, Facebook, and so much more. Thank you.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Carleton.
Over 300,000 severely disabled people get out of bed every day and go to work. But almost 800,000 who could be working are not. So what's holding them back? We are. When people on disability assistance get a job, they abruptly lose their income supports and start paying taxes. Some lose $1.20 for every new dollar they earn, according to a report released today. Will the Finance Minister work with his provincial counterparts to lower the marginal effective tax rates on working disabled people to make work pay?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary for Sport and Persons with Disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government consulted Canadians from across the country in order to develop new legislation on accessibility. We want to hear the viewpoints of all Canadians on this and to put together a new bill. This consultation process allowed us to meet over 6,000 citizens and groups. We continue to be open to suggestions in order to come up with the best bill possible for all Canadians. We'd be pleased to work with you.
Billionaires Convention, at meetings in New York and closed-door Shangri-La meetings in Toronto, And in talks with officials and ministers ever since, the richest people on earth have been directing this government on how the tax-funded infrastructure bank should work. Their instructions, they get all the profits from risky mega projects, and taxpayers get all the losses. Why is the government giving a $35 billion bank to the world's wealthiest elite?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We were elected on a platform to invest in a historic infrastructure plan, including developing an infrastructure bank. The infrastructure bank would engage private capital to build better public transit, energy transmission, trade corridors, and more across Canada. By engaging private capital, Mr. Speaker, in these projects, our investments will go further and free up more funding for the record investments we're making in things like social housing, disaster mitigation, women's shelters, and clean water and wastewater systems. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Imagine infrastructure were ice cream, and a wealthy aristocrat wanted to make money selling ice cream cones. Now, if he made a profit from his sales, he could put it in his pocket. But in order to avoid losses, he has the Liberals set up the ice cream cone bank to ensure that taxpayers pay the price if he makes a loss. Mr. Speaker, why won't the government admit that this is a gigantic $35 billion self-licking ice cream cone for the wealthy elite?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, we value the expertise that those in the private sector can offer and thank those on the Economic Advisory Council for their advice, for example. We've engaged a number of actors across the country, including the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, unions, provinces, territories, Indigenous peoples, engineers, construction firms, and more. We are proud of this level of engagement on the infrastructure bank's design, and from someone that comes from the private sector, for me, this is absolutely a no-brainer. We look forward to continuing to speak with a wide range of actors. We will continue to do so. All this for the interest of Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, the Minister continues to repeat that all the information on the infrastructure bank is available, and yet, via a access to information request, we got a document on a meeting organized by BlackRock for their clients, where the Prime Minister, the Minister of Infrastructure, and many other ministers participated. The problem is we can't get the guest list. Why? Because it was completely redacted. We cannot see it. This list exists. Can the Minister tell us where we can find it? And if not, what is this government hiding from us? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We were elected on a platform of investing $180 billion to build the Canada of the 21st century. BlackRock was among many other groups we consulted, such as the Canadian Federation of Municipalities, provinces and territories, engineering and construction firms, unions, etc. We are pleased with our consultation on the design of the bank, and we are eager to continue our conversation with varied groups as we go ahead with this important initiative. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. We see it's very simple, but where is the list? They can't tell us where it is, so we can't know who was there. Now, this is what the Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy, led by Kevin Page, the former parliamentary budget officer, had to say. The case for the infrastructure bank is not very convincing because it could increase the cost to taxpayers while privatizing infrastructure that's currently cost-effective and risk-free. Nobody believes in this infrastructure bank. When will the government abandon this project? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. By mobilizing the private sector to build new infrastructure projects, our investments will have a greater impact while freeing up public funds to invest in priorities such as affordable housing, disaster relief, women's shelters, and drinking water treatment. We think that all municipalities, large and small, like the one of the member opposite, will benefit from the bank, and we continue to work with our partners to build better infrastructure and create good projects for the coming century.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, the Liberals haven't denied that the projects funded through their privatization bank would result in user fees and tolls placed on Canadians. They haven't denied that the projects will cost more and result in significant delays. So will the government deny today that if offered the choice, Canadians would choose not to have user fees on infrastructure?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for his question. This is an important question to be asked. Indeed, the Infrastructure Bank is an effort to leverage private capital in projects where we see fit. Again, let me remind the honourable member that these projects are put forward to us, and these are projects that we will, through the Infrastructure Bank, examine and make the right choices for Canadians. By engaging, and let me remind you again, Mr. Speaker, by engaging private capital in these projects, our investments will go further and free up more funding for the record investments we're making in things of importance to the member opposite, like social housing, disaster mitigation, women's shelters, and the like. Thank you.
Honourable member for Victoria.
Yeah, well, I guess he didn't answer because Canadians were not offered that choice, Mr. Speaker. All week, we've been asking specific questions about the secret Liberal infrastructure, brought to you by BlackRock. And all week, the Liberals have avoided clear answers, just like today. Instead, they've responded with very tightly crafted talking points. So here's my question for the Liberals. Is the government using any messaging given to them by BlackRock? Yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We value the expertise that those in the private sector can offer, and thank those people who have been giving us these input. If we're going to offer options to the private sector, we indeed need to consult these people and get their input and feedback to us as we put our best foot forward and how to leverage that private capital. The session with BlackRock, it bears reminding, lasted only a few hours, but we spent hundreds of hours consulting on the infrastructure blank, including the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, unions, provinces, territories, academics, engineers, construction firms, and more, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Laurier.
Honourable member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. It's really sad, Mr. Speaker. We want clear answers, and we keep getting the same lines that don't tell us much. We know that BlackRock had a lot to say about the creation of this bank. Imagine the minister asked BlackRock to approve his speech during that meeting in Toronto last November. So I'd like to know, is it BlackRock that approved the minister's lines as well? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It bears repeating in French that the BlackRock session was a few hours. Among hundreds of hours we spent consulting the Canadian Federation of Municipalities, unions, provinces, territories, Aboriginal groups, academics, engineering, construction firms. For the people from the private sector, their input is essential for these investments that will be leveraged and free up public funds for infrastructure programs for many Canadians. The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Well, one would really think that was written by someone else. Yesterday, during the debate on our motion requesting an in-depth examination of the Infrastructure Bank, the government it had no intention of doing this. And yet, the report sponsored by the government did recommend an in-depth examination. We're talking about a bank that will be responsible for $35 billion in public funds. Since the bank would be responsible for taxpayers' money, doesn't the government think that this kind of investment does deserve a more in-depth examination? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To have in-depth consideration, you have to consult. You consult all kinds of people. Of course, we consult the private sector that will make these investments. It bears repeating. The KPMG report, one of the ones that we looked at and reviewed, stated that the Infrastructure Bank would accelerate economic development and growth. It would create projects of national significance and make sure that decision-making is done quickly in accordance with the necessary development for Canada's future.
Mr. Speaker, what do the following things have in common? $1 million for refurbishing the Status of Women Minister's office, $852,000 for furniture for the Infrastructure Minister, $291,000 for vacations on Billionaire Island and St. Kitts, and $30,000 for Broadway tickets for rich friends. Well, these are all ways that Liberals have wasted the hard-earned tax dollars of Canadians. How much more of the taxpayers' money is this Prime Minister going to waste on his rock star lifestyle, his billionaire friends, and his entitled ministers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Order.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Our government's top priority is to make smart and responsible investments to strengthen the middle class, grow the economy, and prepare...
Order. 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 There's too much noise in the House. I'm sure that honourable members want to hear the answer of the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I can't hear her at all. And so I'd ask honourable members to please keep the noise down. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And once again, we can see that there's positive signs that our plan is working. When we look at the job growth over the past year, we have created over 250,000 new jobs, Mr. Speaker. When we look at the unemployment rate, since December of 2015, the unemployment rate has dropped from 7.1% to 6.5%. Mr. Speaker, it's good news, and we're going to continue to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Well, indeed, let's talk about Canadian workers. Canadian workers work very hard all week. They see half their pay go to taxes. What Canadian workers don't like is when the government spends their money on ridiculous things. The list that the member for Sarnia just gave us is a case in point. Is there anyone in this government that could ring the bell to end recess and say the Government of Canada will properly manage Canada's public finances? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I thank my colleague for his question. Strengthening the middle class allows us to give Canadians a good standard of living as they work hard and want a good future for their children. Over the years, our government has increased taxes for the richest Canadians and reducing them for the middle class. We put in place the Canada Child Benefit that helped 9 families out of 10 get more money in their pockets. We've helped our seniors with the increase in the GIS. We'll continue to go forth to help Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Barry Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, on Wednesday night, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister responsible for the Phoenix pay system debacle said on national TV, and I quote, "Canadians don't need to know when asked how many times the Prime Minister has met with the Ethics Commissioner. Canadians don't need to know." That's a line that would even make Kathleen Wynne blush, Mr. Speaker. Do the Liberals share the Parliamentary Secretary's view that being accountable to Canadians is only on a need-to-know basis? And when did the Liberals abandon their pledge of openness and transparency?
Secretary to the Government House Leader. Order.
Mr. Speaker, that pledge has never been broken. This government believes in accountability and transparency and will act accordingly. As to members across the way, as the Prime Minister has said time and time again, he is happy to answer any questions the Commissioners has during the process, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to encourage members opposite to remain focused on what is important to Canadians. We know, Mr. Speaker, middle-class Canadians want to see results, and that is something in which this government is delivering.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil. Order.
Well, here's what else apparently Canadians don't need to know about. The minister responsible for carbon taxes blacked out documents on how much carbon taxes will cost Canadian families and businesses. The minister responsible for massive debt and deficits won't tell Canadians when we will return to balanced budgets. And the minister responsible for Liberal billionaire friends and family infrastructure scheme won't say how much risk there is to middle-class Canadians. Sunny ways indeed, Mr. Speaker. Will the Liberals just admit that they had no intention of being open and transparent, and that pledge was just another empty election promise?
I remind honourable members to use the proper titles of members in the House, the titles of their particular post and or their riding names. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very very much, Mr. Speaker. We know that when we have an economy that works for the middle class, we have a country that works for everyone. And since coming into office, Mr. Speaker, our government has accomplished a lot of things. We have cut taxes for 9 million Canadians while raising them for the wealthiest 1%, Mr. Speaker. We've introduced a very generous Canada Child Benefit Program that has lifted hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. We've also put in place an increase in the guaranteed income supplement by 10% for low-income seniors. Mr. Speaker, we are moving forward to help middle-class Canadians, and we are proud with the work that we have done. Thank you.
The honourable member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, the government has made its choice for a new Commissioner of Official Languages. It seems that giving $5,000 to the Liberal Party of Canada, $500 for the Prime Minister's leadership race, and being a former Liberal minister are prerequisites for this position. It's really unfortunate to see that this government's first appointment is completely partisan in nature. Are the criteria for this new process for appointments by the Prime Minister be a Liberal for a long time and contribute to party coffers? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our two official languages are at the heart of our Canadian history and identity and are a priority for us. When it comes to appointments, our government is firmly committed to making sure that the process is rigorous, open, transparent, and based on merit. In order to find the best candidate for each position, we are very proud of having appointed a highly qualified commission. The role of Official Languages Commissioner is very important, and we are sure that the recommended person has all the required qualifications.
Rocky Ridge.
Last week, I asked if the Prime Minister would recuse himself from the appointment procedure for the new Ethics Commissioner, who may inherit the investigation into the Prime Minister's conduct, or whether he would just appoint a good Liberal to help get him off the hook. Perhaps signaling what's to come, last week he appointed a former provincial Liberal cabinet minister as Official Languages Commissioner. Well, if he likes to reward Liberals, may I suggest the Minister of Defence as the new Ethics Commissioner? I hear he might be available soon.
Secretary for Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, our two official languages are at the heart of who we are as Canadians, but so is redefining the process by which we select highly qualified Canadians to fulfill important government appointments. We've revised that process to make it more rigorous, more open, more transparent, and more merit-based for all public appointments. We are proud to have appointed Canadians of the highest quality thus far across all levels of government thus far through this process. The Official Languages Commissioner is a very important role, and we will ensure that the recommended person meets that high qualification standard.
That's a good answer. Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, after a year and a half of not getting paid properly, the Professional Institute of the Public Service has been forced to file grievances on behalf of 60,000 workers they represent. Why? Because the longer the Phoenix pay fiasco drags on, the fewer answers the Liberals provide them. The hard-working men and women in our public service need to know when their pay nightmares will finally end. Is the government tired of hearing about Phoenix? Because I'm sure public servants are tired of not getting paid.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, of course, join with the Honourable Member in my belief and this government's belief that the situations are unacceptable with the public service pay system. We are deploying all the resources, financial, human, and otherwise, at our disposal in order to make sure this queue goes down and make sure that these situations get resolved. What I will say, Mr. Speaker, is that the Conservatives left us 700 fewer compensation advisors, booked $70 million in phony savings in order to get to a phony budget surplus. But despite all of that, we will...
Order.
Don't blame us. Yeah, come on now.
Order. We have limited time for a question period, and these interruptions take away time from honourable members. We don't want to do that. The honourable member for Elmwood-Transcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to an internal RCMP document, staffing levels at the dispatch centre in Manitoba have reached a, quote, critical level with a vacancy rate of 35%. As a result, Manitoba RCMP officers who are dealing with refugee border crossers at Emerson, on top of their regular duties, are going to see a reduction in their field support. This level of so-called risk management by the government is not acceptable, Mr. Speaker. When the government looks to pinch pennies, why is it always frontline RCMP officers that get the short end of the stick?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary, the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we're deeply proud of the work that our men and women in the RCMP do every day to keep our country safe, and we're committed to ensuring they have the resources they need to do the job. We are obviously looking at the fact that there was about $500 million cut in the last term of the Conservatives to the RCMP. The damage that was done to the RCMP by those cuts is significant. We're committed to restoring the service and being there with the men and women who serve us.
Honourable Member for Battleford's Lloydminster.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since the Prime Minister's phone call with the President last week, Trump has gone from small tweaks to massive changes on NAFTA. Job well done. Canadians are right to be worried because the Prime Minister won't say what he's putting on the table. Since he doesn't actually have a NAFTA plan, will the Prime Minister at least ensure that Canada enters talks from a position of strength by ratifying the TPP like Japan and New Zealand have already done? It's the right path forward economically and strategically, and we couldn't even mind if the Prime Minister claimed to be the architect of such a bold idea.
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as Canada said on numerous occasions, we're ready to come to the negotiating table at any time. The Canada-U.S. economic relationship is balanced and mutually beneficial. Our economic ties with the U.S. are key to middle-class jobs and growth on both sides of the border. Let's not forget that NAFTA has been tweaked, modified 11 times since inception. When our partners are ready to come to the negotiating table, Mr. Speaker, Canada will be ready.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, last November, the Prime Minister stated that he would be pleased to renegotiate NAFTA with President Trump without even knowing which industrial sectors were targeted by the U.S. administration during such talks. After having met with dairy producers in my riding, I can tell you that their greatest concern is to be used as game tokens in these negotiations. Now that the President has attacked our dairy producers last month, can the Prime Minister assure us that farmers under supply management will not be just used as tokens in negotiations with the U.S.? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our government strongly supports Canada's supply management system, be it for dairy, chicken or eggs, and for all sectors of all farming sectors in Canada. We've been in close cooperation with all sectors in Canada across the country. We will not speculate about future talks, but we'll continue to support our dairy, chicken and egg producers as well as our supply management system.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Agriculture had a real opportunity to put to rest their bad plan to eliminate farmers' ability to defer cash purchase tickets for listed grain sales. But all he did was sow more dissent. Mr. Speaker, to quote one constituent who sent them an email, it's becoming harder and harder to defend the Liberal government to fellow Western Canadian farmers. I agree, Mr. Speaker, it's impossible. So will the Liberals now listen to farmers and do the right thing and drop this reckless plan?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I want to thank my colleague for his question. Our government strongly supports the Canadian grain industry, which is a key driver of exports, jobs, and economic growth. With changes in recent years to the grain marketing, the delivery of listed grains is now the responsibility of the private sector instead of the federal government. In Budget 2017, we will launch consultations with farmers and stakeholders on this tax deferral, and we want to hear from farmers before we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, the Fisheries Minister seems to have forgotten that fisheries and fishermen are a big part of his job. He hasn't been to Newfoundland or Labrador to meet with those suffering from his quota decisions. He won't release any details on the Atlantic Fisheries Fund, and he thinks nothing of cancelling meetings with fishermen who have travelled to see him. Given that he so desperately wanted to be the Fisheries Minister, when will he actually start doing that job?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question. I'd like to start by thanking the members of Parliament from Newfoundland and Labrador for their diligence and hard work in addressing many of the current challenges in that province. We met just this Tuesday in a whole-of-government approach, including other departments, to work on innovative solutions and opportunities for the region, including the Atlantic Fisheries Fund. We understand that this is a difficult time for fish harvesters and communities affected by recent fishery management decisions, but we must ensure that we protect and conserve these valuable resources for future generations. We will continue to listen, engage, and work with these communities and stakeholders that are affected.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Transport has finally launched an investigation into the cause of the large waves that damaged several residences in Yamashish. Thank you. However, the Minister has not announced a timeline for this investigation or promised to make the results public. Mr. Speaker, the residents of Yamashish have the right to transparency in this file. Can the Minister tell us if he's set a timeline for the investigation, if the results will be made public, and if he's planned a compensation program for victims? The Honourable Minister of International Trade. The member knows well that I spoke to the Minister of Transport and I met with victims in Yamashish and saw the houses that were affected by what my colleague just mentioned. We are going to investigate. I spoke to the Minister of Transport and we will be making public the results of the investigation. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that I was with the residents of Yamashish yesterday to see what the situation was like. We stand with the Canadian Armed Forces on the ground to help the residents.
Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
When it comes to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the Liberals have been anywhere from inconsistent to completely misleading. The Minister of Indigenous Affairs committed to adopting UNDRIP, and yet her most senior official said that the government, quote, may not consult specifically on UNDRIP. Meanwhile, the Minister of Justice has said that UNDRIP is unworkable, yet yesterday at committee committed to it. Mr. Speaker, we need a clear answer. Will the Liberals support Bill C-262 to implement UNDRIP, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as I affirmed last month at the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, the government is committed to fully implementing the declaration and is working in full partnership with Indigenous people on the path forward. We've already announced the new distinctions-based permanent bilateral tables with First Nations, the Métis Nation and the Inuit, as well as a working group of ministers responsible for reviewing the laws and policies related to Indigenous people. These processes, along with others, are supporting and informing the implementation of the declaration.
Honourable Member for Fleetwood, Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the beginning of Science Odyssey, Canada's largest celebration of science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Emphasis on these studies is key to Canada's continued success and innovation. As a dad, I always enjoyed working with my kids on the school science projects. We always got good grades. And passion for the sciences, we know, comes with good school curricula and great teachers. Can the Minister of Science tell the House what our government is doing to encourage and support young people to engage with the sciences?
Honourable Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague from Fleetwood, Port Kells, for the good work he does on behalf of his constituents. Our government is committed to fostering the skills and talents of the country's bright and curious scientists and innovators. That's why our government is supporting science promotion programs like Science Odyssey and NSERC's Promo Science, which received more than $10 million in Budget 2017. We know that when youth choose science, they're choosing to build a bolder, brighter future for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals put up roadblocks to job-creating and nation-building infrastructure. Now the BC election and NEB changes put approvals at risk and cause uncertainty for future proposals. The Natural Resources Minister claims approvals are safe, but actions speak louder than words. The Liberals are making it up as they go along, and their erratic project-by-project approach is killing investment and jobs. That added red tape drives away pipeline proponents and kills energy workers' jobs. Will the Liberals finally champion Canadian energy and make sure pipelines get built?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We would not have approved these projects if they were not in the national interest and did not have the support of Canadians. We have said many times that the choice between climate action and pipeline approval is a false one. We are committed to an approach that does both. We recognize that there is a diversity of opinion with respect to major energy projects, and we will continue to work with all parties in all provinces. Our goal right now is to make sure that projects move forward in order to build a stronger future and good middle-class jobs for Canadians. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, we have learned that the government has given complete control over the development of its infrastructure bank to the same private investors who will benefit from it. Not surprisingly, these private investors have chosen their own backyard in Toronto as a new home of this bogus bank. Can the Minister of Infrastructure, the government's Minister for Alberta, tell this House whether he fought for Alberta to be the home of this infrastructure bank, or has he simply given up his seat at the cabinet table to these Toronto bankers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for his question. The location, while key to developing and working with our private proponents, is not of capital importance insofar as we need to focus more on the historic infrastructure that we're making and the capital that we're freeing up in order to put forth our transformative infrastructure plans for Canadians. Toronto, with other cities, was a choice that was made because it has great access to private players. That is one of the options that we entertained, and it is one of many options that we may have had, including Montreal, Halifax, and others. Calgary certainly is a great place for private capital. It's a great place for investment, and that's why we're investing in Alberta, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians recently learned that our national security agencies went into scramble mode after finding out from the media that there were radicalized employees who were working at Montreal's Pearson International Airport. Conservatives called for these pro-ISIL airport workers to be fired, but the Liberals refused to act, and now we learn that the security agencies themselves were caught off guard. Why are the Liberals sweeping under the rug these serious concerns? When will the government get serious about confronting radical jihadist terrorism and do something to keep Canadian air travellers safe?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to reassure Canadians their safety and their security is an ultimate priority. We have robust protocols in place to protect them. A few weeks ago, the Minister asked the Department to examine all the security protocols and to seek reassurances that the highest security levels were being respected. We have identified cases where security clearances were temporarily suspended at the conclusion of those security investigations.
Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Speaker, our illegal border crossing problem from the U.S. is actually getting worse. People are streaming north across the Canada-U.S. border with no end in sight. And now we know that more than 50% of these non-refugee border crossers are staying in Canada and are not being deported as the law requires. Has the minister had discussions, this is a specific question, had discussions with his U.S. counterpart to stop illegal immigrants before they cross? If so, will he present Canadians with a plan that works?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, the Minister has met with Secretary Kelly. Both ourselves and the United States discuss regularly the situation on the border. Let us be very clear that any individual who crosses irregularly into Canada will be apprehended. They will be placed in detention, and they will have their claim heard as to whether or not they have a legitimate claim. If it is not a legitimate claim, they will be turned away. That process is working effectively. We continue to monitor it and work with our U.S. counterparts.
Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Getting at the cause of thousands of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls is crucial to our country. But almost a year after the inquiry's launch, families are being completely left out. And now concern and frustration is growing after the inquiry was suspended after only one hearing. Is appropriate funding fully accessible for the commissioners? And is this government doing everything it can to support the families of murdered and missing Indigenous women?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Affairs.
Speaker, our government is committed to ending this ongoing national tragedy. We are confident that the Commission has the tools, the resources, and the networks to ensure the voices of families are heard and that they have the support they need. We will continue to work collaboratively with all parties to ensure the Commission is able to fulfill its mandate. The government has also taken immediate action on the root causes with investments in women's shelters, housing, education, and reforms to child welfare.
The honourable member for Desnathy, Mississippi Churchill River.
The Liberals' infrastructure bank is going to leave small municipalities out in the cold. The finance minister himself admitted it in November. He said, and I quote, "The kinds of projects that are unlikely to fit the bill might be, bridges or roads in smaller communities, for example," unquote. Why are the Liberals putting the interests of their corporate friends ahead of small communities like mine?
The honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for her advocacy on behalf of small communities. Indeed, on this side of the House, we took note and we put $2 billion into infrastructure, classical modeling of infrastructure into rural and northern communities, and we plan to deliver on that promise. The assumption that the infrastructure bank will solely invest in large projects in large cities is false. There are potentialities for transmission lines, hydro projects in the north, taking the north off diesel or coal or rural communities where needed, where we consult with the partners and they feel that is necessary. That is simply one option in the toolbox we have for transformative infrastructure, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the health minister is refusing to meet with Lyme disease experts and patients because she knows she's failing them. She held a conference, Mr. Speaker, but is now ignoring the legitimate evidence that was presented. Instead, she released a framework that turned its back on those suffering from this devastating disease. Will the minister finally acknowledge the thousands, Mr. Speaker, the thousands of letters sent to her and meet with the Lyme disease advocates so they can have a voice in the final framework? Is that too much to ask?
Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think our government recognizes the impact that Lyme disease has on Canadians and their families. I know it firsthand. I've had a cousin who suffered Lyme disease for a couple of years. Last May, over 500 individuals came together at our conference to develop a federal framework on Lyme disease. We have discussions from that conference helping map out a draft framework. So when he says a framework has been released, it's a draft framework. The framework will be released shortly for the end of the year. Thank you very much.
Well, member for Calgary Confederation.
Mr. Speaker, the minister also refuses to say how much money will be used to fight Lyme disease. Lyme disease is on the rise in Canada, and Canadians suffering from this debilitating illness need treatment and care, and they need it now. The Liberals claim to be spending money on an action plan, but haven't actually budgeted to do anything. No money means no action. Can the minister tell us exactly how much new money is going to be spent on Lyme disease this year?
Yes. The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've mentioned, our government recognizes fully the impact that Lyme disease has on Canadians and their families. And we've had a conference where we've had 500 individuals discuss a potential framework for Lyme disease. The final framework will be submitted later on after we've received over 350 individual or collective submissions. And I can assure members at this House that the Public Health Agency of Canada will be carefully considering these perspectives as we move forward on the Lyme disease framework. And I look forward to working with the member on that issue.
Well, member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, May 22nd is the World Health Organization's 70th World Health Assembly. This is a meeting where vital issues of health and disease control are discussed. For the past decade, Mr. Speaker, Taiwan has been an important contributor. But there was no invitation this year because the WHO bowed to the pressure of China. Has the health minister done anything to advocate for the inclusion of Taiwan, or is she too afraid of offending the Liberals' friends in Beijing?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada will, of course, continue to support Taiwan's participation in multilateral fora where its presence provides important contributions to the substantive agenda and to global public goods. Since 2009, Taiwan has been an observer in the annual World Health Assembly, and its continued participation is in the interest of the international health community. Taiwan's presence at the World Health Organization allows it to actively participate in the global fight against pandemics and disease. We welcome participation from the entire international community to promote global health.
Honourable member for West Nova.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, Atlantic Canada has a wide range of different communities, each with its own dynamic and unique history. We face unique challenges when it comes to strengthening and diversifying our economy. Innovative sectors, notably export-based sectors, represent an important aspect of the new Atlantic Canada strategy. Could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development tell this House about the commitments made in this important region? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation. First off, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Nova West for his question. Mr. Speaker, we have put in place a whole-of-government approach that aims to strengthen economic growth in the Atlantic region. Thanks to the Atlantic Canada Growth Project, we have a project pilot for immigration that will increase immigration in Atlantic Canada by 50%. We also have an accelerated growth strategy for companies and an agreement to double trade and investment by $20 million. I would like to thank all of my colleagues from the Atlantic for their hard work on this important issue. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government has not given anything to the Quebec region. Nothing new for the Nordic Institute, for the port in Quebec City, for the pre-clearance at the Quebec City airport. They said that the Quebec City Bridge would be settled by the 30th of June, but nothing's been done. Minister Blais in Quebec and the Mayor of Quebec City have both said the Government of Canada is unable to solve these issues, and the Liberals are not keeping their promises. Will this government finally respect Quebecers? What is the new date to settle the issue of the Quebec City Bridge? The Honourable Minister of Families. Mr. Speaker, the region of Quebec is an excellent region for the middle class, for economic development that's based on science, collaboration, innovation, foreign investment, and investment in our workers. These are all areas in which the new government is working collaboratively with all the community, including the Quebec government, and we are working inclusively, effectively, and respectfully with them. We have invested significant efforts and seen good results in Quebec concerning the Diamond project, for example. We are working very hard, Mr. Speaker, to keep all of our promises. The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The international market for clean technologies is already worth over $1 billion a year and growing. Clean technologies create secure, well-paid jobs for Canadians. They help fight against climate change, and they make our economy more dynamic. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources explain how we're investing in research and innovation with our partners in order to develop and adopt clean technologies that will create good jobs, that will promote sustainable economic growth, and that will protect our children and our environment? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Pontiac for his question. Our government committed to creating a cleaner environment for future generations by investing in clean technology. Yesterday, we announced funding of $21 million for clean technology projects in Alberta that aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the oil and gas sector. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, recent data released by Stats Canada shows that for the first time in history, there are more seniors living in Canada than children. Budget 2017 provides almost no help to seniors today, but instead delays palliative care funding for a decade. Seniors need help now. So when the Liberals start taking this issue seriously by making the necessary investments in palliative care and home care, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
There is more to do to provide Canadians with end-of-life care. Our government's legislation on medical assistance in dying clearly demonstrates our commitment to work with provinces, territories and civil society to improve access to a range of end-of-life care services in Canada. And I'm glad the members asked this question about home care and palliative care, because we've invested $6 billion to improve access to home, community and palliative care services over the next 10 years. So thank you very, very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Prime Minister realized that the flooding events in Quebec are only going to become more common as the climate continues to change. But the government's infrastructure plan doesn't include any money for adapting to climate change. Worse, the $2 billion announced last year to fight greenhouse gas emissions was cut from this year's budget because there was no program to allocate the money to. So, can the government confirm that it has exactly the same plan to fight climate change as Stephen Harper? In other words, no plan. The Honourable Minister of International Trade. Mr. Speaker, like last week, I was on the ground yesterday. I was with victims in the riding right near Joliette to meet with victims, to meet with civil authorities, to meet with people from public safety, and I was there with the Premier on the ground to see the situation with my own eyes. As the Prime Minister said clearly, we need to build better ways of doing things. We already have money allocated in the budget for climate change. Citizens understand this, but one thing is sure. Now it's time to help victims, and that's what we are doing with the Canadian Armed Forces. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-L'Île. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister realized yesterday during his visit to Gatineau that climate change has a real impact on the flooding situation. Things will have to be built better because flooding may be happening every couple of years from now on. If he's serious about this, he should start by taking action against climate change by saying no to the Energy East project. Will the government reject Energy East once and for all, or is this just empty rhetoric? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, we know that the effects of climate change pose a serious risk to our health, our well-being, our communities, our economy, and our environment. Even with concerted efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, this will continue to get worse. Recently, we've seen some of the extreme effects of climate change, such as flooding, and this will continue. That's why in our budget, we have announced more than $2 billion to mitigate and adapt to natural catastrophes. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-L'Île. Mr. Speaker, barely 15% of Francophones attend French school in English Canada. In Quebec, there are more school children attending English schools than there are Anglophones. The Official Languages Committee proposed to change the census, the results of the census in 2021. This comes down to the issue of language politics. French is threatened in Quebec and in Canada as a whole. Will Canada stop hiding this situation and contributing to the Anglicization of Quebec? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Official Languages. Mr. Speaker, we want to thank the committee for its report. Both of our official languages are important to our identity. We want to promote the use of both official languages across the country and to ensure that our official language minority communities flourish. We will analyze the report's findings, and I will be working with my colleague, the Minister for Innovation, to work with these recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs. In March, the new Shared Arctic Leadership Model report was released by the Minister's Special Representative. This report highlights and offers several recommendations and places emphasis on the need for improved northern education, infrastructure, and conservation. I share her concerns regarding the current status of the North and wholeheartedly support her view on how to shape sustainable and healthy northern communities. Has the government accepted the report's recommendations, and what actions are being taken to implement them? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister for Indigenous Affairs.
The government welcomes Mary Simon's report on a new shared Arctic leadership model and her recommendations. Ms. Simon's report provides us with a strong foundation to address the real needs and priorities of Northerners. We will work with Inuit territorial and other Northern partners to ensure that Canada's vision for Arctic leadership reflects the unique history, culture, perspectives, and priorities of the North and Northerners. Kuyanamik.
This will conclude question period for today. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents. Introduction of government bills. Mr. Duclos for Mr. Garneau.
Mr. Duclos for Mr. Garneau, seconded by Mr. Sajan. Request permission to table an act respecting the regulation of vessels that transport crude oil or persistent oil to or from ports or marine installations located along British Columbia's north coast.
This motion is deemed adopted. Mr. Garneau, seconded by Mr. Sajan, moves that the bill be now read a first time and be printed. This motion is deemed adopted. And when shall the bill be read a second time? At the next sitting of the House. Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Déclaration des ministres. Rapport de délégation interparlementaire. Presenting reports from committees. The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai l'honneur de... Mr. Speaker, I have the honor of presenting, in both official languages, the 9th report of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women on Bill C-337, an act to amend the Judges Act and the Criminal Code, sexual assault. The committee has studied the bill and decided to report back to the House with amendment.